I'm curious about your mentality about coming like over relapsing so many times and like continuing to wind up in treatment like for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Right. I think it's different. It just depends on the time frame on which I relapsed. You know, obviously I did a lot of stints of treatment before 18, and then 17. I guess that's before 18, and then one afterwards.
He's so smart. Jackson is smart.
I definitely think that it was hard the first times for sure, and like I didn't want you feel shame, at least I did. I didn't want to be looked down upon, and especially after like accumulating some time, and I know that a lot of times I would struggle, and I wouldn't speak up because I thought that I was supposed to be seen as a certain way because I had time in sobriety and because I was young. I wasn't supposed to be vulnerable. And inevitably it would get me high, and then that same shame and like not wanting to be vulnerable would keep me away.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by you're not supposed to be vulnerable?
Well, and I'm just speaking from my experience, that because I would say, like, let's just say whenever I had relapsed, whenever I was 19 and I had like a year and a half or like almost a year and a half at that point, and I know being sober then, and I'm sure like y'all can relate, where people would be like, oh my God, this is so crazy how you're sober and you're so young. Like that would just like put a pretty big ego on me. And I'd be like, yeah, motherfucker, like I'm sober and I'm this young, and, I felt like people expected me to be a certain way. And I would just, whenever I was struggling internally, I was like, well, I can't talk about it, like my other friends are sober and they're young and they seem to be doing good. Like I need to be that, you know what I mean? And I would get, darker and darker on the inside. And then eventually, yeah, I would get high for sure.
Yeah. So, so you're saying that part of the reason why you got high after being introduced to the runes of AA or the big book of AA is a lack of vulnerability because you felt like you couldn't be vulnerable?
Yeah, I would say so. I would feel like I would need to like hold a standard for myself.
And so, like, what advice could you give to somebody that is currently feeling that way?
I think, and it's what my sponsor tells me. He's like, your thoughts don't concern me until you don't tell me about them. You know what I mean? And I've had to learn that. And through this time where I know I don't have the luxury of keeping that stuff in. So as soon as I feel down and sad or something's not going my way, or I have a fleeting thought that like maybe drinking or something like that sounds fun, and I immediately speak about it, the power of that goes away. You know what I mean? Versus like if I'm holding it in, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you're young, old, it really doesn't matter. And if you're feeling like you can't talk about it, or you're having those thoughts, the best thing to do is just to talk about it. We're not, no one, or most people, at least I don't think so, would look down on something like that. Whenever I do have those vulnerable conversations, and I'm sure I've had those with y'all. I know I've called like a couple months ago. I would feel like I called Michael like once a month, or every other week. And I'm like, yo, like X, Y, and Z, I'm not feeling good. Like a drink sounds nice. And as soon as I get off the phone with him, like I feel so much better. You know what I mean?
Yep. It is definitely my experience that thoughts of drinking is, even after like being sober for some amount of time, is like a lot more common than people would think. And my thought around that is like, well, I was drinking and drugging for so much of my life, and alcohol is obviously a big part of, well, not a big part, but like around everybody's life, that it's hard to like not every now and then like kind of get that thought, like I know whenever I got married, in May, that, after we got married, like everybody was getting like their little like toast glass with like some champagne in it or whatever the fuck. I was like, oh, I am now missing out on this toast with people because I cannot drink. And it was quick. Kind of came in, called the old spawn, or did I thought it was somebody about it. I can't remember who, because I was out of the country, so I don't think I was making phone calls. But
you
either
didn't
way,
have that international plan on board.
No shot.
Not with the Verizon.
No shot. But I did talk about it with somebody, and it was just a fleeting thought. Came in, kind of left, but I still found it important to go and share that. And like, lo and behold, just like you said, like once I talked about it, the power of it got taken away almost, which is a beautiful thing about being transparent and not keeping things bottled up or contained inside, and because nobody's judging me as hard as I'm judging me. Right, no one's thinking about me as much as I'm thinking of me. And I got to remind myself constantly of that, though. I feel like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, dude, alcohol, it's around. I mean, like, obviously, like your fiance drinks, my girlfriend drinks, and like whenever we go out, she drinks. On my sales job on Friday, like the whole sales floor will like crack open beers and stuff like that. And I would be lying if I didn't say like, oh, that looks fun. You know what I mean? But that's why, I immediately talk with someone about it, because, those people are going to have a couple beers, go home and have a, very chill weekend. You know what I mean? I'm going to, go to the dope house and fuck everything up.
Very chill weekend.